Okay, Thomas. Oh, this is Ray Harwood at Bigfoot Quest magazine. I'm interviewing Thomas Sewid from Sasquatch Island, and he's an expert in pretty much all things Northwest Sasquatch and the Native American traditions on that. So he's going to enlighten us on that. And go ahead, Thomas.
So I guess it was you gotta get the date confirmed, but I think it was 2017 when we went on Operation Sea Monkey that Todd Neese from the American Primate Conservancy put together with me. We had Ron Moorhead come on board, Gunnar Monson, who produces Sasquatch Coffee, Darren O'Brien, who was runs the BigfootStore.com and does other publications, and Victoria Williams and her father, Ron Williams, who is captain and owner of the yacht Clottawa. And we went out from Campbell River. We left there, traveled up Johnson Straits, and stopped in a place called Blenkinsop Bay. We went out on the tender that night with FLIR that was supplied by the Olympic Project, and it was a $20,000 plus FLIR unit. So it was really good. We actually saw a couple, three wolves come onto the beach, and I guess they scented us and they took off again back into the forest. But that was the only thing we observed that night. The next day, we pulled anchor and traveled further north into the Broughton Archipelago, which is my tribal territories for the Mamiliacha tribe of the Kwakwaka'wakw First Nation, place where I'd spent almost 20 years of my life living out there during the spring and summer into early fall, running ecotourism operations and living in an abandoned native village of ours. So we went there, and you'll see a picture of the big house remains behind us and the Operation Sea Monkey crew standing in front. Thomas Steinberg's in the picture. He's a member of what they call the Bokwus crew, BOKWUS, the Bokwus crew on Facebook. They don't have a website, just a Facebook presence. But Thomas Steinberg, I guess, is probably would be considered one of the old guard Canadian Sasquatch investigators. Back in the day with RENEE DAHINDEN and John Green, uh, Thomas Steinberg started his investigations. He lives in Hope, British Columbia, which is just east of Harrison Hot Springs, which of course is a well-known hotspot for Sasquatch activity. But that whole what we call the Fraser Valley is a hotspot, and Hope is right at the eastern edge of the Fraser Valley at the entrance to the Coast Mountains and inland British Columbia. And Thomas lives there. Last I heard, he was watching a sawmill or something and lives right on property. So, and he goes out quite a bit with Jerry Matthews, who's a member of the Buckwus crew. But back in the day, I remember, listening to radio shows and television documentaries about Sasquatch, and you would see this non-Indian gentleman by the name of Thomas Steinberg, and I was really intrigued by him. He was, very knowledgeable, and he also ran around with RENEE DAHINDEN, which to me was, old guard. So when Operation Sea Monkey expedition was put together and Thomas was added to the list, I would look forward to meeting him, which I did. I finally met him in person, and he smoked pipe and I smoked cigarettes. So him and I spent a considerable time on the back deck of the yacht Clottawa, smoking our tobacco and just chattering like two Sasquatches about Sasquatch. And it was really unique to be able to sit there with someone I guess you could say idolized and looked up to, one of the Canadian old guard of Sasquatch investigating. And, he shared with me some of the things he'd been doing. And I followed him a bit when YouTube started out. I would watch some of his videos where he was pounding along in the potholes on logging roads in Hope, Chilliwack, Harrison Hot Springs area. And they had a mishap with one of their vehicles. And I see recently they got a new one. So, I wish him and his crew all the best, and hopefully they will come up with something. They're definitely investigating in a hot spot. Thomas Steinberg, I reached out to in 2022 when I was putting together BinderCon, the first annual Memorial Sasquatch Conference for the late Dr. John BINDERNAGEL, someone that Thomas Steinberg knew and met in person a few times and investigated with, I imagine. But Thomas came to Portney on Vancouver Island, where John BINDERNAGEL lived, and he was one of our presenters. And his talk was it was very respectful of John, and you could definitely tell that they shared a connection and a bond as Sasquatch investigators. And Thomas was, as far as I'm concerned, a top-notch presenter, and I would highly recommend him for any Sasquatch conferences that are being put together. Especially, he's one of the few that represent Canada. There's myself and Thomas Steinberg and Jerry Matthews with the Bookwus crew. Of course, we know about Steve Isidol with his How to Hunt YouTube series, where he talks quite a bit about Sasquatch. And of course, we have Les Stroud, who is unreachable for us people that put together Sasquatch conferences, because he's now contracted up with a speaking company. And when I checked it out last week, he's asking for $25,000 to $50,000 per performance. So having Les Stroud attend your Sasquatch conference, I think it's out of reach now and not achievable for us people that put it together. But Thomas Steinberg, he's just another good old boy. And, his fees are, a few dollars just to come and perform, but also cover his travel, his accommodation, his food, give him a vendor table, and he'll be happy to attend your conference. I talk to Thomas from time to time. I'll reach out to him and we'll talk a bit. Usually it's conference related, and I have him on my roster for Sasquatch Island Sasquatch conferences. And hopefully we'll have another conference in the near future in 2024. And hopefully it'll be up in Canada. And Thomas will be invited, and hopefully he'll be able to attend because he's well worth listening to. Highly recommend following him with the Bookwus crew. They're take the approach and no BS to Bigfoot. So, sort of like what Monster X Radio does, and myself and numerous other Sasquatch investigators, where we don't get into the what we call the woo-woo part of Sasquatchology, the mind speaking, porthole jumping, cloaking, turning into orbs, flying in UFO type of Sasquatch investigating and reporting that we all too commonly hear out there. So Thomas, as I stated, he's meat and potatoes when it comes to Sasquatch, like me, and he doesn't get into the grandiose stuff. He's like Dr. John BINDERNAGEL passed on to all of us in British Columbia. When in doubt, throw it out. Concentrate on conclusive proof of the existence of Sasquatch, then we can delve into the other aspects that may or may not be there or attributed to Sasquatch to have those capabilities. And that's, something I, cherish as an investigator, and it's something I look at is towards another investigator. Once they jump onto the fence and go onto the other side and delve into the woo-woo aspects, it kind of I guess he puts a sour taste in my mouth, and I don't like following that path, nor will I, not unless something, of course, happens. But with my numerous encounters, nothing's happened like that. And I think I can say the same with Thomas Steinberg. He's, straight down, nose to the ground, looking for tracks and other evidence, and putting boots to ground and getting out there. I've even seen videos where there's snow on the ground and there's Thomas and his investigators doing the job. And, that shows ethics and integrity and dedication and devotion to the whole cause to find the existence of Sasquatch. So I highly commend Thomas Steinberg, and I highly recommend him for others to hopefully reach out to him to be one of the speakers at a conference. And I wish him all the luck in his pursuit, like all of us, to find conclusive proof of the existence of Sasquatch.
That's great. Yeah, I was,
There you go.
reminds me of John Green. In one of the films, he's sitting on a couch and they ask him about the woo, and he says, so why confuse one mystery by adding other mysteries?
Yeah.
Solve one mystery first, and then we'll find out what it's capable of. That's
Yeah, exactly.
but
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the other's fun to talk about, but it really kind of makes things more complex than they need to be.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Just because we got a little bit of time, I don't know, you're probably pretty busy, but um, the Dr. Bendernagel conference, are you going to have another one of those? And maybe
Um,
describe a little bit about the ones you've had.
So in BinderCon we held in November of 2022, and the reason why I did that is, I'd always heard um, people talk about John, you know, how good of a man he was, how dedicated he was to the cause. But, I kept thinking, people are doing these conferences, but no one's, putting something together about John, might hear a little one or two sentences from a speaker at a conference, but that was about it. Other than the International Bigfoot Conference that Russell LaCour held in Yakima back three or about just before COVID, and that was probably the last conference that John Bindernagel ever attended. And I seen the reception he had. He was basically on the peak of his career. The people going up to him, wanting pictures, autographs, talking to him. And you can see that, the sickness that would take him was, digging into him. And you can see how tired he was, where he had to disappear and go to his room and get a nap. His wife, Joan, was there. They were at their table selling their books. But you could just see that, he was there for the show must go on, even though he was very sick at that time.
Uh-huh.
And Russell did a very good talk on the stage when he introduced John Bindernagel and commended him on his hard work and his efforts. And, you got to remember that John, with his peers in academia, they didn't accept, and as they still don't, Sasquatch. So John didn't fight with it. He knew it was there. You could tell it was a chip on his shoulder that the academics wouldn't, give him more credit and credibility to the existence of Sasquatch and bring it into a scientific realm instead of keeping it in a mythological realm. And John was very cordial as a person, soft spoken, get very excited. And, at the conference, it was nice to see what Russell Accord did. And, insofar as giving John the respect that he deserved. So I thought about it, and I've talked to a couple conference facilitators, and of course they're all about the money and they're not about the feelings and things
Right.
like that. So I said, I could be a whiny Indian about it, or I can just damn do it myself. So I reached out on social media and asked people would they be interested in a memorial conference for the late Dr. John Bindernagel in his hometown community of Courtney. And I couldn't believe the amount of people that were stepping up and, saying, yes, do it. I'll definitely attend. So I started putting it together. I found a facility, a small hall. We got to get insurance, which cost $1,000 for one day.
Oh,
It blew me away. Who knew you had to have that? And
oh
I hear
yeah.
you have to
I
have that
think
in
I
the United
know.
States as well for liability. So anyway, we went forward with it. I'm racked up my credit card considerably beforehand, and ticket sales were ongoing, and Kerry Kilmurray Clausen, who's does the Canadian and my Sasquatch map, I highly recommend checking it out. But her and her husband looked after ticket sales, and I had to wire them the money. They went and made a deposit for the hall because I was down in Washington State, and they live in the Courtney area. They live in Comox right next door, and I reached out to the community that on emails to all of what I call the Sasquatch celebrities. And I said, is there any chance you can do a 1 minute to a 3 minute video, just giving some words about the late Dr. John Bindernagel? And right away, Cliff Barrickman, first one in, almost 3 minutes. My wife took that, put it into the computer. Amy Boo sent in her interview and words about Dr. John Bindernagel. And Ron Moorhead, I interviewed him at Medellin Falls Sasquatch Festival in 2022, and that June, and he did great words about John Bindernagel. And then, of course, people like Thomas Steenburg, uh, Terrence James, who wrote the biography of Dr. John Bindernagel, and Red Goringer, who wrote Nagani, the Yukon, the Sasquatch of the North, Yukon and Northwest Territories West in Canada. They were in person, so they did their words up on the podium.
Uh-huh.
And Carrie Kilmurray doesn't speak, so I spoke on her behalf. She doesn't like to speak in public forums. But what really, and definitely needs to go in the editorial is I was very disappointed that other Sasquatch celebrities, people that even met Dr. John Bindernagel and put him on their documentaries or TV shows, they never took the time to send a 1 minute or a 3 minute video clip. And that to me is something that really has to change in the Bigfoot community. Because one of the things John and I, when we spent so many years together from the early 1990s till his passing, one of the things he taught me was when in doubt, throw it out. And as you mentioned with the late John Green, why add another mystery into a mystery already? So get conclusive proof, as John Bindernagel stated and John Green, of the existence of Sasquatch, which RENEE DAHINDEN supported as well. And then we can delve into the other aspects, such as cloaking, mind speaking, orb turning, porthole jumping, UFO flying. So, John also, he taught me that. And he said, we got to have conclusive proof, Tom. Then we can look at those other areas.
Mhm.
But one thing he also taught me was Tom, 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 Tom. And he'd get all excited. We got to do like you and I more. People got to do like that. They need to do like what you and I do. You come to my house, I come out investigating with you. We sit at your galley table on your salmon seine boat and we discuss Sasquatch. We, go to the conferences together. We have coffee together in a donut shop and when you're passing through town. This is what has to happen in the whole community of Sasquatch investigators and enthusiasts and television producers. We need to cooperate more. We need to be more friendly to our fellow investigator. And this is what is really hampering the conclusive proof of the existence of Sasquatch. Everyone's on their soapbox, standing on top of their pyramid with their arms outstretched, saying, look at the spotlight. As far as Sasquatchology goes, I'm the only one. There's only me, and I am the one that is the best. And it's such a bullshit philosophy and path to follow. And we see it all the time, where I'm shunned from one of the Sasquatch conferences in southern Washington State. Twice they put me on their stage because I showed up and paid my $25 or $40 for a ticket and lanyard and went in. And then at lunchtime, they're like, oh, let's bring Tom Sewid, Sasquatch Island, on the stage. Why is it they're bringing all these non-Indians in there and paying their hotels, their travel, their food, their accommodation, their free vendor table, and giving them speaking time, but this Indian doesn't get invited? I was told I was going to be invited for the 2021 session of the Sasquatch conference, and the female blatantly looked me in the eyes and lied to me, because the next year when they showed the poster, I wasn't communicated to, nor was I on the speaking list.
Mhm.
But I went, and they put me on that stage at lunch break, and you couldn't put another human in that hall. They were shoulder to shoulder, sitting in every chair, and people were in the hallway trying to push their ears towards the door to listen to Tom Sewid speak. And this is what needs to change, whether it be prejudice and bigotry because I'm an Indian, or is it what I think it is they're afraid of me because I was taught so much by the late Dr. John Bindernagel. I even went and investigated with RENEE DAHINDEN. I was at the first Canadian Sasquatch conference and got to meet Peter Byrne and Grover Krentz. And I believe Jeff Meldrum was there. I just can't remember because it was 1997, so long ago.
Mhm.
But I met all these great people. And, for me to sit in a coffee shop in Hope, British Columbia on the Trans-Canada Highway at a restaurant and invite myself to sit with the
That's awesome.
And I've hung out with so many other Sasquatch known as celebrities and investigators. I've read their books, Dr. Jeff Meldrum. You know, all the Sasquatch celebrities I consider my good friends. But there is a few that are trying to aspire to for grandeur within our industry, within our community, and they shun others. They hoax. Yeah, they're just on a bad path. And a lot of people ask me, you seem to be like a really aggressive on social media where, you call someone out, you call a spade a spade. I'm like, I'm Hamatsa. I belong to the Cannibal Society of the Kwakwaka'wakw First Nation. My role is to uphold the word and honor and word of our chieftains. That's my training. So in turn, when we have these Sasquatch investigators, authors, speakers at conferences, television personalities, when people attack them or shun them or disrespect them in any way, I always tell them, what is Sasquatch? What does it to mean to be a Sasquatch investigator enthusiast or have a chance encounter? You always respect Sasquatch. You never throw something back at them. You never think of trapping them or shooting them. You never throw sticks back at them. You don't shake bushes when they shake bushes. You turn around and leave after, hopefully get some video and audio and pictures and then get out of there, but get out of there respectfully and give respect to the Sasquatch. And why is it within our own community, we hairless bipedal creatures have that animosity and angst amongst one another? And sure, when I jump in there and tear someone a new one on social media because they screwed up, that's what's needed. We need some discipline. We need some accountability. We need people to be accountable and accept the ramifications of their negative actions. And if it means the whole community turns on them and shuns them, or one or two of us rip you a new one, then you so deserved it. And like I
Right.
tell some people, maybe we should just go out behind the conference halls and duke it out with the dumpsters,
Mhm.
and let the good man walk back into the conference, and the one that got his ass whooped stay out there licking his wounds for a few minutes until he comes in with his tail between his legs. And that's what Sasquatches do. It's the bush code. You don't hear any animal out there that coddles and pacifies and looks the other way when they're part of their pack or their young ones screw up. They get swatted, they get bit, they get pushed on the ground. That's what we need within our Sasquatch Bigfoot community as well. We need some discipline and some rules, and we have codes that we must adhere to, and we have to look at the writings from Dr. John Bindernagel, the interviews of Renee DAHINDEN on stage, Grover Krentz, John Green, uh, Peter Byrne. These are men that are no longer with us, but even the ones that are with us, we have to heed what they're saying to us. That we all, like you and I, you reached out to me 4 years ago before COVID, and now here we are. I'm helping you with Sasquatch Quest magazines. We're going to go do investigating together. We've been to a conference together. We're going to do more conferences, and that's what we need more in the community. And I think that's something that has to be brought to attention, that the ego has got to be put in the closet.
Mhm.
The I, me, and only me, and look at me on my soapbox standing on top of my imaginary pyramid has to be pushed aside. And we have to start communicating with one another, sharing our work, is a big thing. How many times, like I always remember when I went to that Sasquatch Summit, and Dr. John Bindernagel, Les Stroud, and Todd Standing were together, and they were presenters there. I was just attending, but I always remember, I got up and I walked out when Todd Standing was talking on the stage, sitting there at a table with Les Stroud and John Bindernagel, because as I looked at Peggy, when Todd was talking 3 minutes into his talk, I stood up in a sold out auditorium of over 660 people. And because I'm deaf in one ear, I looked at Peggy and I said, I can't listen to this bullshit anymore. I'm out of here. And I turned and walked out, and everyone got to see, I think it was about 2016, 2015. People got to see then who the true Tom Sewid was. He wasn't going to put up with the bullshit of Todd Fraud Standing. And I walked out. When Peggy and I got out into the empty hallway, who was right behind us but Les Stroud. So we talked to him and we got selfies and pictures with him. And, but it showed, the whole audience saw that Tom Sewid, Sasquatch Island, and his wife would walk out on Todd Standing, and Les Stroud was right behind me. So that made a statement. That's like two Sasquatches shaking trees and roaring at each other. It's bringing it out where it needs to be brought out in the public forum like that. And and then that evening we're all sitting out having drinks in the lobby. A lot of the Sasquatch celebrity investigators are all there. I won't say any names, but I remember Todd saying, "Oh, come with me," and everyone stood up and they all went up to his room, and I wasn't invited. And he said, "Oh no, this is a private thing." Ever. And that's when he went in and showed his supposed blackface Sasquatch, or one of his Muppets anyway. And then, I asked John about it just afterwards, and he told me what they saw up in that room. And then all of a sudden, a year and a half later, it's all over social media that Todd Standing filmed the Sasquatch. No, it's just another one of his Muppets. And this is something, I've been hammering on quite a bit on social media. I call him out, call him for what he is. He's a fraudster. And, the evidence is at hand. We have it. We know he's a fraudster. Yet people who have no comprehension, clue, or know what a Sasquatch looks like keep giving him his spotlight, keep helping him push him up higher in his imaginary pyramid. And even though he's right down in the basement right now, but there's those ignorant people out there that think what he filmed was true. But there's people like me and others that are calling him out for what it is: fraud, Muppets, Muppeteering. And, should put the evidence out there. So whereas 2 years ago and beyond, there was all this proclaiming about the grand Todd Standing, where now you barely gets a peep or a squeak on social media, because we have educated the masses that no, that wasn't a Sasquatch and he wasn't telling the truth. And, there's that other guy, Biscotti or whatever, he got caught frauding. You never hear about him no more. You never see him on documentaries on television. And it's like a ship. Me being a captain all my life, the captain's word is the code. You adhere to the code. You don't ever gossip, backstab, whine, or become poison on the deck of a boat, because you'll walk the plank, you'll be keel hauled, you'll be thrown over the rail into the water, or you'll be whooped with a cat of nine tails against the mast and then hung from the yardarm. So that in the old days, when those people that were whipped because they were poison on a crew, when they died up in the rigging and their maggots rained down on deck as the crew were scrubbing the deck on their hands and knees or going about their duties, they would feel the maggots hitting them, and they'd look up and be reminded, don't ever break the code or that will be you. And that's what we need to do. It's a harsh way of looking at things, but we are Sasquatch investigators. We are rough and rugged at our edges, and we chase one of the greatest mysteries the world has to offer at this modern time, where we can talk to people on the other side of a planet with a cell phone or a push of a computer button. And yet we're out there, and we can't allow passivity. We can't allow the toxicity of fraudsters. We can't allow Bigfoot with BS. We got to keep it true. And we got to have a few more RENEE DAHINDENs out there.
Right.
Mama named me right. My name's Tom Ass for a reason. I will become an ass when you poke and prod me or fraud me. And that's what we need more of, is we need more attitudes like a RENEE DAHINDEN, and you look at some of the old videos, how he would have it out with people, it's, sure, it goes a little too far in some cases, but you got to call a spade a spade. You got to say what needs to be said. You can't hold it back. And this is one of the things I find is a dilemma sweeping our Bigfoot community industry right now. And it's something we all have to change, myself included. I'm not perfect.
Well, I've been suffering from the same problematic situation where, I came onto the scene way late, uh, as far as Bigfoot research and things. I mean, I was doing it on my own, but then during COVID, I started the magazines, and but I've been almost completely blackballed. It's just that I don't know. It's because maybe they think I didn't earn it, earn their trust or respect or whatever. But here's a platform where they could put their ideas in writing, which you have many times, and I appreciate it immensely. Put their ideas, theories, all that sort of thing, and then discuss it with other people. People could respond in the next issue, and that's what I wanted. But it's pretty much just you and I writing, and I've received some really kind help with photographs from Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and he'll give me feedback. Um, given his position and stuff, he has to be very careful on, write actual writing things and things like that. But, he'll give me feedback like by a text message or things like that. So I'll take those and maybe put them in the next issue and then give my perspective on why I did certain things. And sometimes I'm just flat out wrong and he corrects me, which is great. And you correct me, which is great. And but it's just oh, and Daniel Perez, don't I forget, sorry, Daniel, if you ever watch this show, Daniel Perez has been really helpful. And he like you, he's a Dahindenite. He will tell you exactly what he feels, and if you're wrong, he will be relentless, like a Dahindenite should. So it's Daniel's been really helpful, and of course I get his Bigfoot Times, and that helps. And then but yeah, it's still going to be okay if no one writes in because I have a couple people's brains to pick, and all the old classic books by John Green, Dahinden, um, all of them, and then Meldrum's book, and then your publication that you're working on, and then there's well, I'm probably forgetting most of the big ones, but when you have those by your side, you know what the other people were thinking, and you can take the original masters and what would they say on this topic? Well, they probably already said it and it's probably published. So that's going to get me through so I can keep doing the magazine as long as I can. But it would kind of be nice to have input and feedback and things, but it's probably not going to happen too much. But
The
the same
Indian
problem you
world,
were saying.
we call it the crab syndrome. And everyone knows that, crab syndrome, what it stands for. There's two people with crabs at the end of the dock getting out of a boat. One's an Indian, one's a white person. And the white person has to put a lid on his bucket. He looks at the Indian. You're not going to put a lid on your bucket of crabs? Oh, no, I don't need to. The crabs are just like us Indians. Every time one tries to break free and get over the lip and go live and not be eaten, every other crab down below grabs him and pulls him down and says, "Hey, where are you going, big shot, egghead? What do you think? You're better than us? You're going to stay down here in the bowels with us and be unemployed, collecting welfare and so forth, and being suppressed by your own self, really, because you're suffering from crab syndrome." Whereas the white guy's crabs, he has to have that lid because his crabs are just like most non-Indians. Every time that crab tries to break free or publishes a magazine series like Sasquatch Quest magazine, or outperforms at Sasquatch conferences like Sasquatch Island and the standard normal speaker, because we're so diverse. We bring the Indian cultural component. We have traditional masks and regalia performed on stage. Lived in the bush for over 26 years. I was a grizzly bear hunting guide based on a yacht for many years and going into areas and doing my job, but also Sasquatch investigating and having encounters. And I had numerous encounters living in bush, and where people were sitting at home celebrating Christmas, I was living alone in a logging camp or sports fishing camp, watching it all by myself because they all went home for the winter or end of season. So I have done things that most people would probably piddle themselves if they ever had the chance to do. And I have forgotten more about the bush and Sasquatch than most investigators will ever know. So this is the crab syndrome where it's, oh no, we don't want him at our conference. God, oh no, we don't, want him at our festival. And why is Sasquatch Island shunned? But then again, why is Sasquatch Island going to the biggies like the International Bigfoot Conference with Russell Accord, Yakima Bigfoot Conference, where it was like being in Reno on that huge stage, Sasquatch Summit, Forks Sasquatch Festival, which will be our third year in a row. Medellin Falls will be our third year in a row this year. And the Alaska Bigfoot Cruise, we're on the first trip ever with Dr. Jeff Meldrum and David Paulides, and now I've been invited to Glide Sasquatch Festival, Sasquatch Cron. I've been to Creature Weekend in Ohio. There's 3 conferences there every year. I was at one of them called Creature Weekend in 2017. I've been on numerous documentaries, and so that's what the crab syndrome is all about. Why you feel the crab syndrome as well, where they're not going to come up to you and go, way to go, Ray. Oh, you're publishing this series of magazines. It's so good. You're pounding it on social media. And I hear you're actually getting quite a few sales. Way to go, Ray. Can I be in your magazine? You want to do an interview with me? That won't happen. They're going to sit there and pull you down and sit there and chatter like a Sasquatch in a Sasquatch donut shop or somewhere else talking to their group of peers. Oh, what do you think of that, Ray Harwood? No, I hear he's got Tom Sewid from Sasquatch Island now working with him, producing editorials. Whine, bitch. Did those silly, stunned whiners even take the time to go to Amazon and pull their credit card and order one copy to read it, to walk a day in your path between front cover to back cover, and then make judgment on you and I? No. And the ones that are out there that you reach out to for an interview and they don't do it, take the time, answer an email, answer a Facebook Messenger. It's called Messenger for a reason. I sent you a message. You want to interview me? Have to expect to at least say no, but thank you anyway. Don't just ignore me. And the reason why they ignore you is because, God forbid, they see you at a conference one day where you get more stage time and spotlight than they do, or else they have to pay for a ticket in the lanyard because they weren't invited to speak, but they think they're a big investigator. But Ray's up there with Sasquatch Island and they're on the stage for 2 hours that day. That's the mentality of them. Sasquatches have sloping foreheads, but they have more frontal